All right, welcome back. Thank you for joining me. I know it's been about a month since I last posted. It's been holidays and I've been pretty busy. However, there's some really interesting things happening, especially with Duolingo since we last left it. And a checklist of things I want to go through in this video. There are four things mainly. I think the last post I was December 23rd. We were selling some weeklies, monthly put options. And we basically closed those down for a profit of 3,000, like I was mentioning in the prior video. Now we did sell a couple more puts with price target of 140, 145, 150, 145. Then it basically reached 142. The reason it seems to be that the CFO left, and a lot of people are kind of like panicking about it. It's something that I want to talk about in point number 3 when we get to it. But so far, from the prior time that we make the video, we were setting up some buy zones and some sell zones. Now, what I really like about what I'm seeing right now is that the company is reaching that buy zone. And so I consider this is to be a good entry, especially if you can sell a couple of puts around with a 130, 120. However, it already seems to be reaching key areas. One of them being, this is the price, basically IPO. And also it is the price where this bounced up all the way to 500 and something. So there's a lot of, say, just on the technicalities of the chart, there's a lot of support around this area. And if we look at the most volume traded from the beginning of the company, we can see here that it is around 182. All right, so here's kind of like the news that happened on January 12, 2026 for Duolingo. They announced that Julian Munson, the board member and chair, will become CFO, replacing Scarupa, which has been there for about 6 years. Now, the marketing took this news really well and started to sell off. Here they're talking about a lot of, what Scarupa is saying, like, this is rewarding on my life, so I'm not going to pay attention to all this. But if we go to this important update, and I'm going to read it, it's like, today Duolingo also announced a preliminary update on operation metrics for the fourth quarter ended December 31, 2025. The company's preliminary results show further quarter DAU growth of approximately 30% year over year, and bookings at or slightly above the high end of the previously announced guidance range of 329 million to 335 million, right? Regarding the fourth quarter, Luis Van On remarked, as we said in our third quarter 2025 shareholder letter, we're prioritizing teaching better and user growth, and we executed on that strategy in the fourth quarter. While I'm delighted with our preliminary fourth quarter metrics, we plan to continue to invest meaningfully in the product, even when it involves near-term trade-offs. All right, so that's what happened. The company is changing CFO. They are also giving this, update for the core quarter. It's looking like nothing has changed. They're hitting their metrics, and they're still going to be investing long-term, which as a user of Duolingo, I actually love that. Another update here is the Explain My Answer has been made free to most users. That's one of the core things that the CEO wanted to make the free experience even better. They used to have a forum where people will kind of like explain some of the answers and the issues if you made a mistake, but now it's all done by AI in some ways. So that has been added finally for free, and the people on Reddit seem to be really happy with this move. They're still really upset in some ways about having to, the change between hearts and energy, which I think the energy is still pretty good decision at the end of the day. The main reason why the stock is falling is that there's a really deep belief that AI and other type of companies are going to come in and destroy Duolingo, either by big companies or small companies. And that's something I see in every single chat. However, that's something we touched on the previous conversation when we said most of this don't really hold any water. And the reason for that is quite obvious. If other people can come in and use all these tools to create apps, why wouldn't Duolingo be able to do so as well, right? And that is something we have seen with the release of the chess scores, which it took only the peak 6 people to create, right? And they released it took like 3 people in the beginning to develop it, and then like it took like 9 months, and then at the end it was only 6 people working on it, and they added like match against other people, etc. And it's really well designed and integrated into Duolingo. Now, I took the liberty to go ahead and check some of the other applications that have been vibe coded. Here is one of the ones I look at on Reddit, which is Lingua Simplify. This one is for learning a language. Now, this was released 7 months ago, and it only has basically 2 ratings. Now, like I said, 7 months ago, this was published on Reddit, and I know they vibe coded it, but it has basically non-existent usage. And that's something we're going to be seeing recurrently. It doesn't really matter if you can code an app. What matters is people know your app. So everyone can create an app, but does people know about your app? Like most people don't know I have an app and I made it. And if I cannot get it out there, if people don't know it, if there's a better option like Duolingo, it's going to get, inundated by other apps and other people coming in and creating. And at the end of the day, you have a swamp of a lot of apps created, but not a lot of traction. There's another one here. Again, this was made 1 year ago. This person created like Duolingo for finance. Now it got about a lot of traction here on Reddit. And I went ahead and checked, 5,000 reviews and Apple, and then 17 reviews. Now, obviously that doesn't mean how many people are using it, but it kind of gives you an estimation that it's been 1 year. They created something that looks good, and it's kind of like a Duolingo copy, but okay, does it change anything? It really doesn't. And the reason why is because, like I said, Duolingo can do the same thing, and they have been doing the same thing. So here's like how Duolingo vibe coded its way to hit chess game, right? Like I said, it took 9 months to create, only 6 people. And they integrate into the app that have millions of users. And once you drop it there, there's millions of more users using whatever you create. So at the end of the day, you can imagine that Duolingo is going to start running a lot of experiments where they get a lot of almost like Google. Google do this a lot, and they do it really well, where they get teams, like small teams, they send them away and be like, oh, create something you might like, right? And they go and create Gmail, or they go and create Google Drive, or whatever it is, right? And then they integrate it into the products. Now, the same thing is going to happen with Duolingo. Duolingo is going to start sending people to create different things, like chess, the core app, like keep working on the core app, create more little games, and eventually going to group it all together into one app. It becomes a super app where learning and which the central focus is learning and social and fun, right? And that's something they're also been focusing a lot, making things fun for everyone and social. That's something he mentioned, Luis von Ahn. Now, I'm liking that approach a lot. I'm liking the approach where they are experimenting and creating little games. And I'm going to go and showcase some of these little games when we get to that point. One other update I wanted to show when it comes to the AI is that they released on January 14 a new type of AI called, not just Lily, which again, I want to show it, the difference between them. But this one seems to be, here's like, what's the difference about video call with full stop? Unlike our video call with Lily, video call with full stop is structured around helpful coaching. Full leads the way by asking questions based on your language level, suggesting phrases and translations when you need them, and giving real-time feedback in your own language, helping you stay on track with practical everyday conversations. Now, for someone like me that has been using Duolingo and actually trying to learn French, I can tell that when I talk to Lily and I ask her like, can you let me know how to say this in French? She kind of doesn't know what to say, and she says this in French and I don't understand anything. Like, okay. When I talk to Full Stuff, it's actually much better because I can ask him like, hey, how do you say this or whatever? And he will actually say it in English, and then I can try, and then he will be like, no, you said it the wrong way. Try to say it this way. But he will say it in English and explain to me how to say it better. And so that is actually super helpful because for beginner users, you don't really know how to speak the language. And in a way, I also like kind of Lily because it reminds me when I came to Toronto and I was forced to learn the language because I didn't understand anyone, and I just had to try something, right? So I like that approach as well, but in some ways it can be daunting and intimidating. And then I will show how well it has been working once I start talking to them. Another thing I wanted to showcase here is the co-founder, CTO of Duolingo talking about where he specifically sees Duolingo going to. So let's take a look.
If you want to learn anything, whether it's chess, golf, languages, math, music, the single best way to learn is with a one-on-one human tutor. Okay? If we all had infinite resources, that's how we would learn. And that's, in fact, how people used to learn in the past when they had infinite resources, like kings and royalty. They would hire personal one-on-one tutor for their kids. Okay? And the reason we don't have that is because it's so expensive. Okay? And now, for the first time, with AI, we believe we can achieve our mission because AI could allow us to teach as well as a one-on-one tutor, but at the cost of AI, which is much, 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 much lower than a human tutor. So that's the main reason why we wrote the memo, and we see this as a massive, massive opportunity to teach better, and everything else followed from that.
Let's jump to the next video I have here from Luis van Aan. Something I really wanted to show is people are saying that the main argument online is that because everyone is vibe coding, they're just going to take over Duolingo, right? The main argument that I see online is people saying that all these tools like ChatGPT and Cloud and I don't know, whatever they might use, they can use them to basically generate games at will. But like I said, Duolingo is using the same tools, right? And they're like I think right now they have 800 employees. And not only that, they have great designers because you cannot just like tell ChatGPT to create an app and it will create like basically everything with cohesive design and interesting characters and everything, like branding. And then absolutely you're going to get like 1 million users, because if that was the case, you will already see a lot of apps with millions of users. And like I show already, there's people doing a bunch of imitations to Duolingo and using different tools like ChatGPT and all this vibe code, but they haven't, like they created it, they look good, but they don't have any traction. So like I said, why wouldn't Duolingo, which is already doing, create a bunch of teams, which is already doing, and tell like, hey, vibe code it, create something, and then we'll see if we integrate into the app. So it will be basically idiotic to assume that they're not doing that when they're already doing it. And they're already integrating chess with only 6 people. So let's take a look.
How are you using or empowering employees to use AI? I know you have something called, and I have no idea how to pronounce it, but Fry AI Days?
I also don't know how to pronounce it. It has AI for AI Days. I don't know how to pronounce it. Yeah, what we do is there's a number of things we do. But this program is basically every Friday for 2 hours, we just let people experiment with AI tools. And what has happened is that different teams get together and do their own experimentation. So the product manager team, they do some vibe coding together. The engineering team may do something different, etc. And it's worked out pretty well. The other thing we did is about 3 months ago, I said something that may have seemed scary, but in the end it worked out really well. I said 100% of the employees of this company need to have a written program with AI. This was not scary to the engineers, but this was scary. I mean, people
vibe coded? Or?
Yeah, vibe coded something, like actually wrote something, like an actual app with AI. And there are a lot of people that are not technical in the company that, we have a people team, we have, I don't know, the finance team, etc., that they just wouldn't have thought that they were going to be able to do it. But it happened, and I can say right now, I don't know if it's 100%, but close to 100% of people at Duolingo, employees, have now vibe coded something. That's pretty cool.
Are any of those ideas going to make their way into the actual app?
Most of the stuff that people did is basically get used to how to vibe code, and the actual app is harder, but it's a lot of internal productivity tools. There were a lot of people that were basically doing manual entry to things on spreadsheets that are now able to have automated it way more.
So they're using these tools that they actually created?
Yeah.
Has anything come out of the Fridays?
Other than that acronym.
Yeah. The unpronounceable acronym. So speaking of AI,
Well, he didn't mention, but one of the things that came out was the chess thing.
It was exactly a year ago. The 2 people that worked on it, started the project, neither of them knew how to play chess. They now do, but they're not very good. Neither of them knew how to play chess, and neither of them were engineers. It was a designer and a product manager. And for the first, call it 6 months of the project, all they did was vibe coded with AI versions of the chess course. Eventually, it was kind of good enough. None of this was in the app. This was just throwaway prototypes. Eventually, the interaction was good enough that we put engineers on it and we put it all. But the whole thing was done from scratch to launching in 9 months by a team that was at first just 2 people, and by the time they launched, it was only 6 people. And now the chess course has, I don't think we revealed this, but millions and millions of users.
That's extraordinary.
All right. So you heard from the guy. They started with no engineer, just a product manager and a designer. And from there, they created one of the fastest growing courses in Duolingo history. So, like I said, it doesn't really make sense what people are saying about this company. And they also allowing every single person in the company to learn how to use these tools. Like he said, everyone in the company, he sent a memo, everyone has to learn how to use these tools because it's so important. So the next thing I want to show is the app and the new AI from Falstaff versus Lily, and the games that they have included and how they're improving them as we go. So I'm gonna share my screen from my phone. So it didn't work for me setting up the iPhone mirror in my computer, but what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna record my phone and I'm gonna showcase on the screen when I'm recording. All right, so let's start it. All right, let's open the app. Okay, let's click, let's talk to Lily, see how it goes. Just want to remind you that I started Duolingo like a month ago.
Salut, ça va?
A month ago, learning French. Hello Lily, ça va bien, merci. Et toi?
Ça va bien, merci. Tu aimes la nuit?
Oui, j'aime la nuit. Je suis. Comment se dice tire en français?
Pour tired, on dit fatigué si tu es un garçon ou fatigué si tu es une fille. Tu es fatigué?
Oui, je suis fatigué. Je voudrais dormir maintenant. Et toi?
Je suis un peu fatigué aussi. J'aime dormir. Tu aimes le café?
Oui, j'aime le café. Je préfère le thé. Et toi?
J'aime l'été aussi. J'aime le thé plus que le café. Tu aimes le thé?
Oui, j'aime le thé.
Moi aussi, j'aime le thé. C'est très bon. Bon, à bientôt. Ok?
Okay.
Salut.
I think it was just right. Now, there was a couple of things where I didn't really understand what she was saying or how to say specific words, but still pretty good. I've been practicing with her, I will say every day, a couple of times a day. And now let's try Falstaff. Let me first of all go back to my prior section here, and let's talk with Falstaff and see what is the difference between talking to Lily and talking to Falstaff.
Bonjour. Today, you're going to learn to respond in French to the question, what do you see? Okay, are you ready to practice?
Oui.
Great. In French, what do you see is tu vois quoi? To answer, you can say, I see a man. In French, that's je vois un homme. Please try saying it. Je vois un homme.
Je vois un homme.
Wonderful. Now, how would you say, I see a boy in French?
Je vais un homme.
It looks like you used a different word. The correct way to say, I see a boy in French is je vois un garçon. Please try saying it. Je vois un garçon.
Je vois un garçon.
Excellent. Next one, how would you say, I see a cat in French?
I'm gonna make him stay here, see if he catches it. But I'm already speaking, so it's not gonna work. How do you say cat in English? I forgot about it.
No problem. Cat in French is chat. So, to say, I see a cat in French, you would say, je vois un chat. Please repeat, je vois un chat.
Je vois un chat.
Great job. I enjoyed practicing what you see with you today. Feel free to come back soon for another lesson. Au revoir.
All right, that's pretty much the difference. And I like that they give you what you're saying and how you're saying it. So as you can see, it's a bit better Falstaff conversation because you can actually ask it in your language, like, hey, how do you say this? As opposed to talking to Lily, which is she only speaks French and she's not gonna tell you anything else. So sometimes I'm talking to her and like, what is she saying? And then I ask her like in French, Pourriez répéter s'il vous plaît? And which means like, can you repeat please? But she repeats and it's still hard. And now what I'm trying to say is like, can you say it slower? Can you say, I don't understand you basically. And so, yeah, they're improving the practicing with like, they create a new video call. They have the prior, but they're making it better for people that are beginners. And as you can see, I've been learning Duolingo for a month, and like, I think I can speak good. And since I've been practicing speaking, it's better than a lot of people that don't, and they probably just on the super plan, or they in the free plan, because they don't get to practice it. So I would argue that Duolingo, if you wanna use it, you have to pay for Max, which is not expensive. You get 6 people in your family, and that's pretty much it. Another thing I wanted to touch on is on the fact that they finally started to ramp up their marketing. They kind of cool off in the period where there was a lot of backlash. But now with the Bad Bunny Super Bowl, they're starting to do some marketing around that, and it's actually pretty funny, which, you know, Bad Bunny is a really big artist. And even you can see here some of their, here you can see they even put
coming inside. Nope, my ride coming. I'm leaving.
They put some Duolingo marketing on the subways. And I think I saw another one that it was pretty funny too. Let me see. No, not that one.
This is a Spanish-bound train. Next stop, real conversation.
So yeah, I found it. Here's like their marketing for the Bad Bunny thing, and they're doing, like I said, some of the subways for Spanish and stuff. But let's watch this one.
Perreo. Titi me preguntó.
Alright, so that's like, I think that's the ad they're gonna be showing practice times before the halftime. I think that's the ad they're gonna do for the Super Bowl. I'm not too sure yet, but yeah, they'll, like I said, they're also doing some things here for the practice Spanish, etc., etc. I wanted to comment some other stuff related to Google and the release of, they release a specific, well, kind of like, people say it's a Duolingo competitor, but it really isn't. So it kind of asks you, what is your level of Spanish? You can kind of tell your goal, like, hey, I want to go travel here. You can select like specifics. It creates like a course for you. And then you go through practice tests, like listening or speaking.
Hola, señor Gómez. Tengo un poco de hambre. ¿A qué hora suelen tener el almuerzo o la cena?
And that's how it works. And that's pretty much most of it. Like I said, that's fine. Like, that's not what makes Duolingo Duolingo. What makes Duolingo Duolingo is that it's fun, that it's social, that, I don't know, like it's addictive, right? And also, like I mentioned this in the prior video, capital G, which is Google, they are investors in Duolingo. I don't know how many shares they still hold, but as far as it goes, they still show it is in their list of companies. And, you know, this is all the companies that Google invests: Robinhood, IPOs, Locker, Snap, but one of them is Duolingo. And yeah, like I said, they did a 30 million investments in the Series F. To finalize this, I want to mention like 5 specific risks to watch. One of them is the next, like this quarter and the next quarter, when they're gonna say the expectations. So that's something to watch, and it's gonna come up in basically February 26th. So the guidance, right? And we want to really wait for them to talk about it and see where they are kind of like looking for the 2026 year. However, I think it's gonna be pretty much the same thing. They're gonna argue that they're still going to focus on the core user experience and to teach better, which I absolutely agree. And I hope that is actually their main focus. They still have a lot of money in the bank. And I think they could grab that money and start hiring more people and trying to do what Google is doing or does, which is put a lot of core like groups and try to make sure they almost compete into each other and try to integrate those things that they create on the side into the app, which, like I said, they're doing it. They're hiring more people. The other thing to watch out is that potentially a further compression could come. So it could potentially drop more, right? The company is priced reasonably, but not too cheap. Like there's not like this crazy value, we have to buy it. Like it is reasonably priced. It could bounce all the way to 200, or you could stay here for a little bit. So this is a company that if you're gonna buy, you're buying for what for what they were saying. Like Zach, the co-founder CTO was saying that they wanna develop an app that is one-to-one coaching. But the differentiation between ChatGPT and them is that they are curating the experience to be really focused on fun, addictive learning, as opposed to just you go and ask an AI whatever it is, right? Another thing to watch is the CFO. The new CFO coming up is Gillian Munson, and we want to see if he has a new perspective of what to do with that $1 billion fortress that they have. Are they going to buy back some shares? Are they going to just invest money in the app itself? What are they supposed to be doing here? Are they going to do acquisitions? Because they did that in 2025. They bought this company for improving their music and stuff. So what are they going to do with that money? The other thing to watch is obviously the AI narrative. Maybe it changes. Maybe people are starting to see Duolingo not as a company that will die because of ChatGPT, but actually a company that is using AI to create tools. The last one is the short sellers. There's about 20% of the stocks being sold short, and that could potentially create more pressure to the downside. It could also force liquidate a lot of these people if there's an announcement. So the company moving forward potentially is going to be very volatile. So that's also something to keep in mind. Why I feel it's still a good investment is because of the things that I show. That is mostly just based on the news and the story, but the fundamentals still pretty amazing, right? Like it's one of they're growing pretty fast for the size of the company, even though the growth slowed down a bit, but it's still growing. It still doesn't have any debt. At the end of the day, the core fundamentals of the business are working. They're growing. The daily active users is growing 30% year over year. There's the pay users are growing. The max users are growing. Everything is growing. Maybe not as fast as they were growing in the past because they had that unfortunate AI backlash. But I think that's going to start to fade, especially now that they're focusing on the free users. All right, so that concludes the video. Thank you for coming. Thank you for subscribing. And if you don't subscribe. And let's finish with some French. Merci. Gracias por coming. And au revoir. See you soon. Au revoir. Merci. Ciao.